Good morning, everyone. I'm Kyle, and I'd like to welcome you to Discovery Church. We're super glad that you're here. We're going to get started with the service in just a few minutes, but before we do that, we have some cool stuff to tell you about that is happening at DCC. First up, we have an exciting new group called Forge that is starting tomorrow. Here's Mark and Christy to tell you more about it.
We're excited to bring a new discipleship experience called Forge to DCC. Forge is a 12-week discipleship experience that we're going to be running starting on September 11th. Christy and I have been working in this area of ministry for, I guess, combined about 25 years. And what we've done with Forge is bring the best of the experiences that we have had over the years into one program.
DCC has this wonderful story DNA of captivating and wild at heart.
So for many of us, we have gone through the experience and we've come to grips with what our story is about. And so we find ourselves in a place where we're asking God, what next?
Forge, we feel, is a really good next step.
Forge is an opportunity for you to walk out the healing, the freedom that Jesus has for you in your story.
It helps springboard you into knowing how to engage in this real place with Jesus.
If you know your story and you've got at least some sense for how your history is affecting you today, then Forge is the place to be.
If you want to sign up for Forge or just get more information, go talk to one of the friendly people in the garage. Next up, Kristen is going to tell us how a life-changing experience helped her find her way to serving on the garage team.
My friend and I just walked in, and after worship felt like home. So we decided this is where we wanted to be. So about 4 months after coming here, I had a stroke, and most life-changing thing that could happen, right? So I was in the hospital about 4 days later, going through a lot of different emotions. My mom said, why don't you send a prayer request to the new church you're going to? So she sent one online, and the next day, Dick and Carol Eller came to meet me. They sat down with me for a long time, just made me feel like it was okay to be upset and be confused about what was going on. That whole experience just got me on fire for God and for wanting to talk about Him and for wanting to share my experience and for showing that you can go through something tough and come out stronger. And at the time, I didn't really feel like there was a clear direction on the next steps to take. I was in my bathroom doing my makeup one day and just felt this overwhelming sensation to talk to God. And I was in service the next morning, and a guy who I hadn't talked to for over a year came up to me and he said, I know we haven't talked in a while, but I've noticed your spirit and your heart. So he asked if I would join the garage team, but he said, we just need somebody who has a smile and wants to welcome people. So I said, okay. So I just showed up, and it was true. I didn't need to have all the answers. I have met so many people with a smile and a handshake because I have the opportunity to help people find what they need and get connected to their next steps, and I enjoy it.
If you want to serve on the garage team, then go to the garage. Or you can go to me2place.com/serve. So to recap, Mark and Christy told us about an exciting new group they are kicking off tomorrow called Forge. And then Kristen told us why serving on the garage team has become such an important part of her life. Make sure you get here early so you don't miss all the cool videos we show before service. And join us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for all sorts of stuff that we can't fit into our pre-service videos. That's it for this week, so please stand up and join us for worship. Good morning, everyone. I'm Kyle, and I'd like to...
darkness, you're the light that guides me through. Eyes are on you. You are near to the broken, the weak find their strength in you. Eyes are on you. Yeah. When I'm lost in the madness, you're the peace that calms my soul. Eyes are on you. You are love to the hopeless. You're the love that won't let go. Eyes are on you. We lift our eyes to you, where our help comes from. Our hope is found in you, Jesus, Lord of all. We lift our eyes to you, exalted. Whoa, exalted. Whoa. In the midst of the darkness, you're the light that guides me through. Eyes are on you. You are near to the broken, the weak find their strength in you. Eyes are on you. We lift our eyes to you, where our help comes from. Our hope is found in you, Jesus, Lord of all. We lift our eyes to you, exalted. Whoa, exalted. Whoa. Your promise stands, your love endures. Nothing can shake the standing on your word. We're not afraid, we're full of hope. You'll never leave, you'll never let us go. You said, we lift our eyes to you, where our help comes from. Our hope is found in you, Jesus, Lord of all. We lift our eyes to you, exalted. Whoa. We lift our eyes to you, where our help comes from. Our hope is found in you, Jesus, Lord of all. We lift our eyes to you, exalted. Whoa, exalted. Whoa. Yeah. I need you to soften my heart, break me apart. I need you to open my eyes, see that you're shaping my life, and all I am, I say trust what you say, that you're good, your love is great. I'm broken inside, I give you my life. I need you to soften my heart, break me apart. I need you to pierce through the dark, cleanse every part of me. And all I am, I surrender. Give me faith to trust what you say, that you're good, your love is great. I'm broken inside, I give you my I may be weak, your spirit strong in me. My flesh may fail, my God, you never will. I may be weak, your spirit strong in me. My flesh may fail, my God, you never will. Give me faith to trust what you say, that you're good, your love is great. I'm broken inside, I give you my life. Oh, give me faith to trust what you say, that you're good, your love is great. I'm broken inside, I give you my life. Oh, I may be weak, but your spirit's strong in me. My flesh may fail, my God, you never will. I may be weak, but your spirit's strong in me. My flesh may fail, my God, you never will. I may be weak, but your spirit's strong in me. My flesh may fail, my God, you never will. I may be weak, but your spirit's strong in me. My flesh may fail, but my God, you never will. Give me faith to trust what you say, that you're good, your love is great. I'm broken inside, I give you my life. From the first break of life, baby's first cry to the last breath. Every fight in our minds, every victory ends. You've always been there. Ancient one, so amazing, unfailing you are, Holy One, overwhelming my heart with your love, Yahweh, Yahweh, faithful God, you're here to stay, Yahweh, Yahweh, forever and always the same. Where the sky meets the sea, it breaks free. When compassion and love are met with me, you've always been there. Ancient one, so amazing, unfailing you are, Holy One, overwhelming my heart with your love, Yahweh, Yahweh, faithful God, you're here to stay, Yahweh, Yahweh, forever and always the same, Yahweh, Yahweh, faithful God, you're here to stay, Yahweh, Yahweh, forever and always the same. All-consuming, everlasting, God Almighty, Lord of glory. All-consuming, everlasting, God Almighty, Lord of glory. All-consuming, everlasting, God Almighty, Lord of glory. All-consuming, everlasting, God Almighty, Lord of Yahweh, can have a seat. God, we thank you for this time, for this place where we can come and we can sing out your name. And we can be present with one another. We can be present with you and who you are. In your name we pray. Amen. I want to show you guys a video of a baptism. This baptism is going to happen in second service, and you guys are more than welcome to come back and be a part of that with us. But we wanted to share this story of life change with all of you, so take a look at this.
Before I started believing in God, I was going through a tough time with the passing of my mother when I was 5 years old. Then my grandpa died. After that, I just wasn't in a good spot, and my sister eventually was born. My little one, she's 4 now, and now she has Rett syndrome, which makes her disabled, where she can't do much. And then my dad has diabetic, so he's like not able to do as much as he was before. I wasn't really coming to church that much, and then my grandparents asked me if I wanted to come just to try it out because they were starting to go to a new church. So I came, and then I started going to the big service because I was new to it and I didn't know anyone. And then after a few weeks, I started going to Mayhem, and once I went in, Jason introduced me to everyone. Kayla was there, Jordan, and they just really helped me progress to believe more in God. I was at summer camp, and I really had fun because it was only my first camp that I ever went to for church, and I really liked it. And I learned more about God and the way he treats everyone, and how he has a special purpose for everyone. So I thought it'd be a really good idea to continue with my belief in God to get baptized, and that's where I'm at now. I would like to thank my stepmom and my dad. He started to push me to get better and do better things, and then my stepmom, she's been there for me since I was 6 years old, and I treat her as my mom. So she's just really helped me progress through life. Baptism means that you're putting your faith more towards God. God will be there to help you out, and a reason that I want to get baptized is because I want to believe in God, and I think it's the right choice for me because God has put me through all these things in life, and if I get baptized, then he thinks that I'm ready for something big.
The whole goal is to get into heaven, right? That is the destination. So when you're there, then what's the goal? You just sit there?
One of these days I die, and I go up to this place, and there's a gate. And there's a bunch of people, and I'm in the line, and then they're gonna decide whether I get to go through the gate or I get kicked out.
And everybody's going to be jimmying, if you will, for God's presence and time, and that there's not going to be any place for me with him.
I always thought that it seemed like a really faceless place. We're not going to know who our spouse is. We won't know our children. What kind of place is this?
It's kind of a nothingness. Somehow I will transform into some being that's okay with having their face on the ground in front of God for eternity, and almost being afraid for eternity. But apparently what I was told was hell was worse than that, so that's what I should want, because those are my only options.
Hey, let's pray as we get started today. Jesus, right now we walk into this beautiful building on a beautiful Colorado day. The sun is out and the weather's amazing, and we just want to remember our friends and people who are not in that same predicament right now. And as these storms hit, we just pray, God, that you come and do, and you be Yahweh, faithful God, that your love will show through, that you'll be the protector and provider. and that you'll see people through the storm. So we just give that situation to you right now in your name. Amen. You know, I suppose it is somewhat of an odd question to ask in church, but I think it's a good one. When you think about heaven, do you even want to go there? I mean, obviously we're church people, right? So we know the answer is supposed to be yes, but is the goal just to get there? Is it a place of nothingness where we're transformed into some other being, some other type of body or being, where we're just going to be okay with being on our face before God for eternity? There's lots of questions out there about heaven someday, aren't there? There's just lots of questions. Like, I got one. Do all dogs really go to heaven? All right, that's a great question. So lots of questions, lots of confusion around this thing called heaven, even in this thing that we do called church. My friend John Eldridge is getting ready to release his new book. It's called All Things New, and I think he does a great job of addressing some of the confusion around what is heaven going to be like someday. And the good news for us is we're going to get 1,000 copies. That book's coming out in like the next month. We're going to get 1,000 copies of that book for free. Ransom Tart's giving those to us. And so we're going to be giving those away over the next couple weeks as they come in here. So I think there's all kinds of reasons for you to come back and do this again with us in the future. But for the next few weeks, you might as well come back just to get your free copy of that, right? There's lots of questions, lots of confusion around this idea of heaven someday. But here's the thing. That's not what we're talking about in this series. This is not a someday series. This is a 2-day series. Not 2-day series, but today series. That's what this series is about. Not a someday series. This is a today series. So the questions we're kind of wrestling through in this series are: is it possible to bring heaven to earth today? And if so, what does that really mean? What does that look like in each of our lives, in each of our stories? That's what we're talking about and talking through in this series that we started off last week. And we're going to talk more about that today, but not yet. Before we do that, let me say this. Good morning to you. Hey, welcome to this place we call DCC. Yeah, you're awake. All right. We're pumped, jazzed, and excited to have you with us here this morning. We really are. That's always true of everyone every single week, but it's especially true if you are brand new. And if that's you, thanks for having the courage to be here with us today. We want to give a special shout out and welcome to you and, of course, to all of our online friends, old and new, who are tuning in to watch us right now, too. And if you're new, we want you to know you're in a safe place today full of people who are just like you. All of your stories safe and welcome here, regardless of how it reads. You belong with us regardless of what you believe, and you have sat down in a room today full of people who are not used to be like you, who are just like you. And I hope you've already felt that and experienced that in your time here with us today, and you want to come back and do this with us again in the future. You've already decided you're going to do it in the near future. So good to have you here. You know, I think as you think about this heaven thing, I think it's confusing. It just seems like to me it's hard for us to talk about heaven, or this ideal or concept of heaven, or this idea of bringing heaven down to earth without bringing some weirdness and some uncertainty into play. I mean, that's just kind of what happens when we begin to talk about supernatural things. This past week, I stumbled across this video. There's this guy who claims to have captured some video footage of 2 angels flying above Brazil. Anybody seen that? These 2 angels flying. Now I'm going to show it to you in a second, but before I do, let me say this to you. It's a little bit hard. It happens pretty quickly, and it's a little bit hard to make this out. It's not the greatest, clarity on this video, but let's watch this. Now, kind of hard to tell, isn't it? Is that real? Well, luckily for us, there was not only this guy, there was a still photographer who was able to zoom in and get a little bit more clarity on these 2 figures so that we can determine whether or not they're angels. Here you go. I'm going to throw it up there. If you don't know who that is, that's your worship leader, Wade, our worship pastor, and our associate pastor, Jason. Right? Trust me, they're not angels, right? There's no real confusion about that. Listen, reality for most of us is this. Even if we know as much as we can possibly know about heaven, as great as it's going to be, heaven is a someday thing. It's just a someday to him. Someday life, if we're followers of Jesus, someday life is going to be great for us. But here's my question, and here's the question we really got to wrestle with. What about today? What about today? That's great for someday, but what about today? Jesus says this. He says, we're up against an enemy, that there's a thief in all of our stories who wants to steal from us and kill us and destroy us, but that Jesus came so that we could have this amazing, abundant life to the fullest. So is he talking about someday, when we all get to heaven someday? Is that what Jesus is talking about there? I mean, is life to the fullest, is that a someday thing, or is it possible for you and me to begin to experience that between now and heaven? That's the question. Because see, here's the thing. Listen, if we believe what's written in this book, if we believe the Bible, someday is going to be great, but that's not the question. There's hope for us someday, but that's not the question. The question is there any hope for me? And is there any hope for you? Is there any hope in my life, in your life, for our lives between now and heaven someday? In other words, is there any hope for us in the meantime? And if so, here's the most important question of all. How do we find it? That's what I want us to talk about in the rest of the time we have left together today. So let's jump in and let's do this. Matthew chapter 16 is where we're going to be today. We were there a couple weeks ago. We're going to go back to it today, different part of that chapter. If you have a Bible, you can turn there. If not, hey, they're on the back tables. If you can grab one now. If not, no big deal. You can read off that program, that piece of paper we handed you. You can read off our app or YouVersion, or you can ignore all that. Just read with me on the screen. So Matthew chapter 16, we're going to pick it up in verse 21. Matthew writes, he says, "From that time on, Jesus began to explain to his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things at the hands of the elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law. That he must be killed, and on the third day be raised to life." And Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. "Never, Lord," he said, "this shall never happen to you." And Jesus turned and said to Peter, check this out, "Get behind me, Satan. You're a stumbling block to me. You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns." All right, let's stop there. So if you flip back just a few verses, read the whole chapter this week. That's always good. So a couple weeks ago, we talked about Jesus says, "Who do you say that I am?" Peter says, "You're the Christ, the Son of God." And Jesus is like, "Bingo, Peter, right answer. Go to the head of the class." Great moment for Peter. Then right after that, in the few verses before what we just read here, Jesus says, "I'm going to tell you something. I am the rock here. Now on this rock, I'm going to build my church, and the gates of hell are not going to stop it." So there's this high moment. It's like everybody's like high-fiving, and he says, "Okay, and here's how it's going to go down. I'm going to suffer and die." And Peter's like, "Whoa." And Peter pulls Jesus aside, and he rebukes him. Now, side note here. Rebuking Jesus is never a good idea. All right? Now, here's the thing. Peter knows that. Peter knows that. So what is going on here? What is it? What is it that causes Peter to pull Jesus aside and rebuke him here? How about this? How about this? He doesn't like the sound of what Jesus is saying. He doesn't like the sound of what Jesus is saying. You ever find yourself in that space? Yeah, me too. Turn the other cheek. Love your enemies. Bless those that curse you. He doesn't like the sound of what Jesus is saying here. It doesn't line up with his expectations. See, he expects this life of following Jesus to go differently than how Jesus is beginning to describe it now. And so Jesus, no, this doesn't line up with my expectations. It's not what he expects, and it's not what he wants either. I mean, I'm with Peter here, right? I want my life of following Jesus to be easier than that. How about you? And see, one of the things that I've had to learn in this life of chasing after Jesus, I've had to learn these lessons the hard way. After many train wrecks in my life and some train wrecks in ministry and years and years and years of just doing this thing called life, I've come to understand and begin to embrace this concept that I want us to start with today. I think this is going to be helpful for us. Are you ready? Easier is not always better. Easier is not always better. It's just not. I mean, I think, come on, can every single one of us relate to Peter in this moment? It's Jesus, come here, big guy. Come here, I love you, man. Come here, I want to talk to you. Here's a sec. You just said you're going to build your church. Yeah, I'm going to do that. You're going to establish your kingdom. Yes, you are. And you're going to be king. Yes, that's right. That's what I'm going to do. And hell's not going to stop that. Yes. He says, okay. So we're on the verge of that. Do you realize this, Jesus? We're on the verge of that right here, right now. And I love the sound of that. So if we just play our cards right here, Jesus, and if we just maneuver and change things up just a little bit, like just go raise a few more dead people or heal a few more sick people, if you do that right now, these people are ready to make you king. Jesus, we're on the verge of something special here. I can see the finish line. Please, Jesus, don't mess this up. There has to be easier ways than what you're saying here. And there are. And there were. But what? But easier is not always better. And so here's the thing. Despite that, and I've come to believe that is true. It's taken me a long time, but I believe that's true. Despite the fact that I believe that, that doesn't stop me from trying my best to find it. To find an easier way when it comes to following Jesus. I was thinking about, last month was my 9th year anniversary here at DCC, and I was thinking about this journey, and as I started thinking back to the very beginning of this, you know what I realized? Easier almost kept me from being a part of this story. It almost kept me from being a part of this story. And what I'm talking about, I've talked about this before, but when this offer was made to us to come here and be a part of this story, I had 2 or 3 other offers on the table. There were 2 or 3 other things in the works there. Every one of them was safer, more secure, paid more. One of them paid twice as much. Another one was going to keep us in our house in Raleigh, North Carolina. We wouldn't have to move. We wouldn't have to uproot our girls, change them, move 2 of them out of high school. It was great. All the options looked better than this one. And so we came out in June of 2008 to visit for the first time. And I'm going to tell you something. I saw every problem, every challenge, every issue. This was going to be hard, this struggling little church plant of 100 people or less. I saw every single problem inside. I was scared to death. My wife, Stace, she believed this is where God wanted us, so much so that she was kicking me under the table to make me say we would take the job. That's a whole nother story. And here's the thing. I believe God wanted us here too, but I was afraid to say yes. Why? Because it wasn't going to be easy. See, here's the thing. Easier almost kept me from stepping into who God's created me to be and what he was calling me to lead. And almost kept me from stepping into my place in this place. Are you seeing this? This is easier. Sometimes it's easier, but it's not always better. And so what I'm trying to learn as I try to follow Jesus is this. I'm trying to get better at, this life that Jesus is inviting me into is not going to always be an easier one. It's just not. In fact, when I'm honest and I look at my life, a lot of things have changed in the last 9 years of this journey here. But one thing that hasn't changed is it really hasn't gotten any easier. The challenges are different as we continue to grow, but there's just as many challenges in the story. So I look at it and, yep, it hadn't gotten any easier, but I promise you this is true every single day. Every single day it's gotten better. Easier is not always better. And here's one of the things I think that trips us up in what I'm talking about here in this place. We do everything in this place that we can to make this as easy as possible for everyone. We try to make this a place that it's easy to bump into Jesus. That's why we do what we do. It's why we try to create environments like this one. It's why we are very careful about the language that we use in this place, the things we say and the things that we don't say. And we try to eliminate all the weird, churchy, religious words that nobody really understands anyway and just talk like normal people talk. And we try our best to create a safe place where people can belong regardless of what they believe or how their story reads. We're very intentional about every single one of those things in those places. See, it's easy to bump into Jesus in this place. I think it's really easy to bump into Jesus in this place. It's easy to give your life to Jesus too. In fact, that's the best deal on the table for all of us. It's a free gift, God says. All you got to do is believe, confess, repent, receive. Boom, there you have it. Finding Jesus is easy. Giving your life to Jesus is easy. Bumping into Jesus is easy. Becoming a follower of Jesus is easy. Here's the trick. Following Jesus on a day-to-day basis in your life and mine, not so much. Not so much. And this is where a lot of us are getting tripped up. Navy SEALs have one of my favorite Navy SEAL sayings is, the only easy day was yesterday. And so I wonder, is that not only for the SEALs, I wonder if that's for each one of us too as we try our best to follow Jesus. Maybe you and me finding the life that every single one of us came in here searching for today is beginning to embrace this, is about not just jumping on the path of least resistance or always looking for the easiest path in this life of trying to follow Jesus. I think we need to think about that. Let's keep reading here. Jesus is going to turn up the heat. Here we go. Then Jesus said to his disciples, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it. That last verse there, Jason taught something last week. Exact same concept there. So here it is. If this is the formula, if that's the 3-step plan, deny self, take up cross, and follow me, if that's it, then here's my question. How are we really doing with that? How are we really doing with that? See, I'm going to spend the rest of our time together today really just kind of looking at that and unpacking it. And here's why I think this is so important for you and me, because denying self is not something that comes naturally to any of us. It's not our human nature. It's not our default position. Learning to deny self, we learn to deny ourselves as we exercise those muscles, as we put this stuff that Jesus is pointing us to into practice in our lives, one day, one act at a time. That's what Jesus is pointing us to here. So as I unpack what Jesus is saying here, here's what I come to. Denying self is what I'm supposed to do, And carrying my cross is how I'm supposed to do it. Now, that's just kind of weird in the world that we live in. That's great for church terms and church people and all that. But what does that really mean? That's a great question. So when it comes to this idea that you and I are supposed to carry our cross, what does that mean? Let's start by thinking about it this way. Cross carrying. Here's something I want you to know about this carrying your cross thing. This is really helpful. Cross carrying is not for my benefit. Cross carrying is not for my benefit. Now, I suppose we could make the argument. Cross-carrying wasn't for Jesus' benefit. See, I suppose, though, we could make a theological argument, couldn't we? That it was for his benefit because Jesus is God, and it's the whole Trinity thing, and that's confusing. But Jesus is God, and God was using Jesus going to the cross to save the world and make sure all of our sins were covered. So he benefited from that, from the God perspective. So really it was for his benefit. And I get that. I get that. But here's what I want you to see. Despite that, it did not stop Jesus from on the night before he went to that cross asking his Father for another way. When he was staring down the cross and it was time to carry that cross, he said, Father, can you take this cup from me? Can we do this thing just a little bit differently? And when God said, no, son, this is the way we're going to roll, Jesus said, okay. And he carried that cross. He didn't carry that cross for his own benefit. He carried that cross for you and for me. And see, that's what he's pointing us to here. This is the life that he's pointing you and me to here. So why does Peter have such a problem with what Jesus is saying here? Could it be this? That he can't, in his mind, he can't turn off this noise, this message that keeps running through his mind. If I follow Jesus into this, what he's talking about now, how is that going to benefit me? That's a problematic question for us. I was sitting at Chipotle this past Monday. I was meeting a friend for lunch there. I was a little bit early, and this guy walked up to me. He was there with his family, and he walked up. He'd just gotten a refill. He walks up to me and goes, hey, can I ask you a question? I'm like, sure, man. He goes, that flag on your sleeve. So I had on my grunt-style Spartan shirt, which I love. He said, that flag on your sleeve, it's turned backwards, and I never have understood that, and just why is it like that? And I was like, I don't know. He said, honestly, dude, that's a great question. I've wondered that myself. I don't know the right answer. And so I've done some research and talked to some people. And basically, this is my explanation. It's kind of the flip side. If you think about it, it's the reverse side of the flag. So you're seeing the flag from the other side. So if you're standing on my right and I'm carrying a flag like into the wind, I'm moving forward, the flag's going to fly backwards, and that's the way you would see the flag as it's positioned on the shirt, right? But I love the imagery and the symbolism of that. As I learned that, I was like, that's it, right? We're moving forward. We're not in retreat. We're moving towards the battle and towards the enemy. And so as I was thinking about that, I was like, man, that's so good. And then I started thinking about a good buddy of mine. He's actually more like a son to me who's in Special Forces, and he's deployed now in an undisclosed location. I started thinking about him. And I was emailing back and forth with him this past week, and there's a lot of stuff he can't tell me, but he tells me what he can and all that. And he's in a real dangerous place and just fighting every day for our freedom. I'm like, man, there he is. There he is, fighting for his wife and his young son who he misses so much, and fighting for me and my family, fighting for you and your family. There he is. I started thinking about him. I thought about all the other people. We got deployed troops right now who are watching us. We just want to say thank you. Let's give it up for all of our deployed troops right now. Yeah. We love you. Thank you for fighting for our freedom. And I started thinking about it. I thought, wow, there he is. You know what he's doing? He's doing what Jesus is talking about here. He's carrying his cross so that we can be free, so that someone else can be free. And see, here's the thing that we have to see. This is not a military question. This is not a military thing. This is for you and me if we really want to follow Jesus. And the question goes like this. What am I doing to help others experience hope and freedom? What am I doing today? As I sit here today, what am I doing with my life? What am I doing in my life to help other people experience hope and freedom? That is the question for all of us if we really are serious about trying to follow Jesus. See, cross-carrying is not for our benefit. It's not, but here's the other thing about cross-carrying. It's non-negotiable. It is non-negotiable if we really want to follow Jesus, and that's what Jesus is pointing us to here. Now, there's all kinds of problems with us actually doing this thing. It's easier said than done, and I get that, okay? There's all kinds of problems with this. I just want to mention two before we move on because I think it's important that we see this, okay? Cross-carrying, carrying our crosses. So this idea of cross-carrying, it's not about a decision and about discipline. It's not about discipline, just about discipline, okay? It's also about discovery. Because we can go like this. We can go, yeah, there it is. Cross carrying is not just about discipline, it's about discovery. We can go like this. I'm going to decide, I've got to do this because Jesus said do it. I decide I'm going to carry my cross. I'm going to discipline myself, and boom, here I go. I'm carrying my cross. We can make it about that, but we're missing something. It's also about discovery. Because here's what I want you to know, and this is so important. You will never, ever, ever be able to effectively deny a self that you really don't understand. You won't. It is not just about the mistakes you've made and the sin in your life. It's about the things that have been done to you, said to you, and said about you. If you don't get this, what I'm talking about is your story. You cannot deny a self. Over the long haul, you may be able to do it for a while. You can't deny a self that you really don't understand. Now, that's a whole other sermon, a sermon series for another day, but we got to see that here, okay? Not just about discipline, it's also about discovery. Here's the other thing that gets in our way. Our default position is the personal payoff has to outweigh the pain. Where it breaks down for us is when my pain is for your gain. That's where everything goes. In fact, if you really are honest and you look at your life, there's probably only a handful or two of people in this world that you would do that for. Where my pain is for your gain. Are you seeing this? This is what, excuse me, that is what Jesus is pointing us to here, right? Excuse me. Oh. This stuff that Jesus is pointing us to is counterintuitive. The best thing that I can do for my heart, for my soul, for meaning and purpose and significance in my own life, the best thing I can do for me, check this out, is to live my life for the benefit of someone other than me. Jesus said, let me show you this. The best thing that you can do for you is to live your life for the benefit of someone other than you. And if you think about it, what? That's the life of Jesus. And that is what Jesus is pointing us to here. All right, let's finish this thing up. Verse 26, or 26, I'm sorry. What good will it be for someone to gain the whole world yet forfeit their soul? Or what can anyone give in exchange for their soul? Excuse me. For the Son of Man is going to come in his Father's glory with his angels, and then he will reward each person according to what they have done. So here's the thing. Here's what Jesus is pointing us to. What feeds our souls, what feeds our hearts more than any other endeavor, more than anything else we can do, is jumping on mission with Jesus and bringing the hope of heaven to the people in the world around us. Could it be this is what we're missing? Could it be this is what? Could it be this is why we continue to sit in church week after week after week and still find ourselves losing hope and losing heart? Could we simply need to get back to what Jesus is pointing us to here? And really, could it be that we just need to get back to this basic, simple question? The question is this: what does it really mean to follow Jesus? Well, what's it really mean to follow Jesus? I think Jesus is trying to help us with that here. So yeah, we sing a lot. Is that it? We read a lot. We pray a lot. We study a lot. We learn a lot. We quote a lot. We behave ourselves. We cuss very little. We drink light beer. Is that it? Is that what it really means to follow Jesus? Can I tell you something? The mission of Jesus is not in a holding pattern. Jesus said, I'm going to build my church and the gates of hell are not going to stop it. That is not a someday thing. That is happening today. And the invitation on the table from Jesus right here to us is join me in this. Jesus says, I need you to bring a little bit of the hope of heaven to somebody else's today. And here's the way you do that. You follow me. You follow my lead in this. See, there's a whole lot that all of us could be doing in the meantime. So before we get out of here today, I want to dial this in. I want you to make it personal. Listen, me too in this, but here's the question that I want you to think about. Would words like sacrifice and commitment and rescue and servant and generosity, would those words ever really be used to describe my life? See, following Jesus is all about jumping on mission with Jesus to bring a little bit of the hope of heaven to somebody else's earth today. So that's great, but what does that actually mean? You know what it looks like? It looks like 'Cause I Love You. It looks like the 'Cause I Love You, Colorado Springs I Love You movement that we're part of starting leading in this city. It looks like 300 beds and hot showers for our homeless friends in this city instead of the 60 beds with no showers that they had last year. That's what it looks like. You know what else it looks like? It looks like City Serve. City Serve, churches and church people coming together and hitting the streets to do tangible acts of love for our city. Last year, 1,500 people came out. About 12 different churches were represented. Amazing day. And we celebrated that day, and it's amazing, right? But here's the deal. You know what? That 1,500 people represents less than 15% of the people that are actually sitting in those 12 churches every single Sunday. And here's the thing. The path is right in front of us. City Serve is coming up in 3 more weeks for us in this place. Excuse me. Don't make this harder than it is, right? Here's what you can do. You can walk out of here today, right in front of the slat wall. There's a serve table out there. There'll be some nice people there who will help you with City Serve. They can get you signed up today or point you in the direction to get you signed up. We asked last week, we said we need project managers. We need 10 or 12 project managers to handle the projects we want to take on here at DCC. We got one person who was possibly able to do that. We're better than that. So that opportunity is right in front of all of us today. The path is right in front of all of us today. There's more to it than just that. Last week, Jason kicked off this 719 initiative that we're after. As we head into 2 Saturday night services, or adding to a total, making the weekend a total of 4 services, starting the weekend of October 14th and 15th. And we're gonna hand you something today before you walk out of here. I'm gonna show you what it looks like. It looks like this. This little card. I'm gonna ask you to take it home and put it on your fridge. All right, and on the back it explains what it is. If you need 2, take 2. I've got one of each hanging both ways on my fridge at home. But this is what we're asking you to do with us over the next 5 or 6 weeks as we head into this next big thing that God is leading us into. 719, 719. Of course, that's our area code because we're passionate about rescuing the city. But the 7 is about prayer. Would you pray with us 7 days a week? Would you pray 7 days a week for the people that God wants to reach and rescue through us and through this Saturday night thing, that God will open the floodgates and He'll stir and He'll touch people and He'll bring them into this place? On Friday night, October the 13th, write that date down. We're going to have a night of prayer here on the night before we launch the first Saturday night service. We're going to do some low-key worship. It's going to be great. We're just going to come in here and we're going to pray. We're just going to take it to God and say, God, what do you want to do through us? Would you just move in this city? This next phase of revolution, would you bring it here? So the 7's about prayer. The 1 on the back of the card here is about inviting. I'm so sorry. Would you invite one person? I'm not sorry about asking you to invite. I'm sorry, I'm coughing. So, but would you invite one person, one couple, one family every single week for the next 5 or 6 weeks heading into October 14th and 14th? Listen, we're planning that kickoff weekend like we plan Christmas or Easter, with that kind of intentionality and excellence. And we're going to have free hot dogs that night. So you're going to want all your friends to be here, okay? So yeah, there's a good reason to invite. That's the 1 on here. And the 9 is service. Would you serve 9 hours per week? Per month. I messed up just like Jason. Oh, I didn't want to do that. Neither one of us can get that right. All right, so 9 hours per month. What's that work out to? It works out to 1 service a month. So here's what you're going to do. What we're asking you to do is we're asking you to attend 1, serve 1, be done, go home. You're done for the weekend. You attend 1, you serve 1, you're done, you go home for the weekend, right? Whether that's Saturday night or Sunday, we really don't care. We're asking you to do that for 100 days. 100 days to help us. Watch what God does in and through you through that. But that would really, really help us to just get this assault, this Saturday night thing started. So we're asking you to do that. 719. This doesn't have to be just for the next 5 or 6 weeks. This can be our battle cry moving forward. But if you're interested in that, you just go out the doors today. Serve table will be there. Nice people to help you walk into some tangible next steps into what it is that we're talking about today. Now, 2 more, and they're really big ones. The first one is this. We're asking half of you. It doesn't have to be you, but we're asking half of you, okay, to make Saturday night your service for the next 100 days. I know it's a big ask, right? But we're asking you to do that, to clear out more room for this next wave of rescue that we want to do in this city, because Sunday morning is still going to be, excuse me, optimal time for people to come up and for new people to show up at our church. So we're asking half of you to do that. And then last but not least, and I have no voice left. Hold on. Wouldn't you know my voice would go out when I get to the money part and everybody said, amen, yay. All right, here we go. Last, but certainly not least, we're asking for your financial help in moving this mission and vision forward. You know, as I was thinking about this thing this past week, I couldn't help but think about where we were 4 years ago. And there was this magical, I like that word. It was God. It wasn't magic. It was God. But that it felt magical. This God moment on this Sunday in October in 2013, where the 900 or so people who called Discovery their church back then came together and sacrificed and gave over $270,000 in one day. Yeah, clap for them. That's amazing. So that we could buy this building and move this vision forward. So many of us here today, about 2 out of every 3 of us in this room today are here because somebody else was willing to do that. And what I want you to know is, now it's our turn. Yay, I hear you. That child is walking with God. I don't know who that... We've done the homework. Listen, we've talked to churches around the country that do Saturday night, do it really, really well, and we've asked them a ton of questions, and here's what we've learned. The toll, the greatest toll that will come with this next mountain that we're climbing, this next thing we're doing, is going to be on our staff team. And so they've told me, make sure, Greg, that you put things in place, that you take care of your staff, because this will absolutely crush them. This will be a heavy burden on your staff. And so we've been doing that. And the best way that we can help them is to continue to build up their team so we can share the load. So we've added staff. We've added staff to the tune of about $4,000 a week, $200,000 a year. Yeah. Now that's 15, 20 people, so nobody works around here for the money. You can do the math. That's not a lot. We're lean and mean, but we need your help with that. Last week, for the very first time, we had our first incident in the parking lot where someone stepped into one of our potholes and twisted their ankle or hurt themselves. I mean, let's just be honest with each other. Our parking lot's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. And so we build this nice building, and it looks great, and the whole shopping center follows suit. Now we got Starbucks out front and Dutch Brothers over here, and they've got these nice parking lots coming in. That one's coming soon. And here we are, right? Our parking lot's embarrassing, and it's hazardous. It's becoming more and more hazardous. The longer we wait to fix it, the more expensive it's going to be. It's 6 figures just to recoat and restripe our parking lot, but it really needs to be done. So I'm asking for your help with that. We need equipment. We need sound baffling in the lobby. We need equipment. We have equipment needs. I found out this past week that our IT is like 3 years behind where we need to be for safety reasons, firewall, all this stuff that I just talk about, don't even understand. But that we're way behind on that. When someone joins our staff team, we say, hey, do you have a computer at home like you could bring to use? Because we can't really put you on a computer. This is kind of how we roll. We don't have health benefits for our staff. We're way past the point where we should have some sort of health care help for our staff team. Okay, I could go on and on and on and on and on. I'm not going to. I just want to say this. All of this points to, can you help us with this? Because we can't do this. We can't do this without you. So here's what we're going to do. We want to raise $400,000 in one day between now and the launch of Saturday night services. Yeah. Yeah, about... Thank you, U6. Right? We were at $400,000. I know it's a big number. It is. Can I tell you something? Let me just tell you this. 4 years ago, a much smaller group of committed people gave $300 per person so that we could be here today. When you break this down, it comes down to about $200 per person for every person in this building on any given weekend. That's doable for us. We can do this, but we can't do it unless we all pull together on this. That's $800 for a family of 4. Let me tell you the coolest part about this, okay? We're going to take 12%, because 12% is our missions number here. It's not 10% anymore, it's 12%. We're going to take 12% of whatever the number is, whether we hit it, we exceed it, or it's below it, and it's going to help with hurricane relief down in Texas and down in Florida, right? That's what we're going to do, because we got to do that, right? We got to keep this mindset in front of us that it's not about us, and I'm hoping that number alone is like over $50,000. We've got partners on the ground down there already in Texas. I'm sure they'll be in Florida soon, who will make sure that this money gets into the hands of the people who need it the most. All right. So love of Jesus, no strings attached. Now listen to me. Here's the deal. I realize that this is not near as sexy as a brand new building. There's nothing I can do about that. This is not near as sexy as a brand new building, and because of that, and because I'm not going to show up at your door, ding dong, ring your doorbell, say, hey, can I come in, sit at your kitchen table and say, ooh, can you add an extra 0? Or how about you double that amount? Or can you give us a six-figure gift? Because it's not as sexy as a new building, and because I'm not willing to do that, I'm not going to pressure you. You know what the experts tell us? The experts tell us don't expect to get much. You will not hit your goal. Don't expect to hit your goal. You know what else the experts tell us? They tell us that 20% of our church, you're going to leave because I ask you to do this. Can I tell you something? I don't trust the experts. Our faith and our trust in this place is not in the experts, okay? Our faith and our trust in this place is in God and what He wants to do with us and through us in this next season. We can do this. We really can. We can do this. We can continue to change what people think when they hear the word Christian. And here's the thing. Listen. This is not about bricks and mortar. But if you really look at it, here's what you need to understand about this story. It's never been about bricks and mortar. This has never been about bricks and mortar. It wasn't about bricks and mortar 4 years ago. You know what it was about? It was about the 1,500 to 2,000 people who weren't here then that are here now, who've bumped into and experienced the hope of Jesus. That's what it's about, right? That's what it's always been about in this place. It's about names and faces and people and rescue. And that's what it's about again today. It's about stories. It's about all the stories like Chance's story that we just saw. All the stories, the thousands and thousands and thousands of stories that are yet to be told in this place. With 20% of our annual, which less than 20% of our annual budget in our hands, we can double our impact in this city. Let's do this. Let's do this. More people can be reached and more people can be rescued if we're willing to what? Just to individually stretch a little bit, commit, and to sacrifice. If we're willing to deny ourselves, take up our crosses, and follow Jesus into this. Now listen to me. This is not about pressure. It's not about sales pitches. It's not about gimmicks. It's not about guilt or shame. It's not. This is not an obligation. It's an opportunity in front of all of us to put what Jesus is pointing us into here into practice in our lives. And if it's not here, you could be sitting here today and you're like, I don't know you, but I don't like you. I don't like this place. I'm not coming back. That's great. Let me challenge you with this. You need to find somewhere. You need to find a cause, a mission, a church, whatever you want to call it, that lines up with the heart of Jesus, and you need to throw yourself into that. Both feet, I'm all in, a place where you can deny yourself, take up your cross, and follow Jesus into that. You owe it to yourself to do that. Right? There's not only hope for all of us someday. There's a whole lot of hope for all of us in the meantime. And Jesus not only tells us that, you know what He did? He modeled it for us. He denied Himself and he took up His cross. And then He carried that cross up that big hill, right, as they continued to whip Him and beat Him. And then they put the cross on the ground and He allowed them to nail Him to the cross, and He died on that cross, not for His own benefit. He did that for you and for me. See, our hope today is in that cross. Our hope today is in that empty grave. Our hope today is in one name. It's a name that's above all names. It's in the name of Jesus. And so I want us to take our last few minutes before we sneak out of here today. I want us to take our last few minutes, and I want us to do something that we usually don't do on our own. Be still. Be quiet. And just take a few minutes to think. I'm getting ready to pray, and then we're going to pass some trays up and down the aisle. It's got a little cup of juice, represents the blood of Jesus, and a little cracker representing the body of Jesus. And here's what I'm going to ask you to do, and some of you aren't going to hear me, so I'm going to say it twice. Hold it. Okay? Just hold it in your hands, and then I'm going to come back up in the middle of the song that we're going to do, and we're going to take it together today. So hold it. Don't take it. Wait for me to come back up, and we'll take it together today. Jesus says, do this to remember me. Here's what I want us to remember today. I want us to remember that cross. I want us to remember the price that was paid. And as you're sitting there today, and you're going, Jesus, I've done it again. And here it is. Here's the sin in my life that I'm bringing to you. I want you to realize that the price for that has been paid. So you remember that. You remember Jesus died on that cross so that we could all be free. All of our sins are covered. Death could not hold Him, so He died on the cross. He rose again so that we could be forgiven and free. Let's spend our last few minutes together today just sitting in that. Hey, however your story reads, whatever your story reads, wherever you sit as you sit here today, here's what I want you to know. There is not only hope for you someday. There is a lot of hope for you in the meantime. Whoever seeks to save his life will lose it. but whoever loses his life for me will find it. Let me pray for us. Jesus, would you help us to be still? And in these kind of moments, Jesus, our minds want to race everywhere. With what's going to happen the rest of the day, the things we have to get done, the pressures of the world start to crash in again. And we just bring the fullness of your kingdom between us and all of that right now. We ask you to help us to be totally present and available. That even if we aren't sure what we believe and we pass this tray to the next person, that we have a moment just to think about what if this stuff is true, Jesus? What if this is true? And Jesus, that you will just turn down the noise in our lives and take us back to the cross. Take us back to the empty grave. Take us back to the hope that is only available in you. That's our prayer, Jesus, in your name. Amen.
You were the Word at the beginning, one with God, the Lord Most High. Your hidden glory in creation, now revealed in you are Christ. What a beautiful name it is. What a beautiful name it is. The name of Jesus Christ, my King. What a beautiful name it is. Nothing compares to this. What a beautiful name it is. The name of Jesus. You didn't want heaven without us. So Jesus, you brought heaven down. My sin was great, your love was greater. What could separate us now? What a wonderful name it is. What a wonderful name it is. The name of Jesus Christ, my King. What a wonderful name it is. And nothing compares to this. What a wonderful name it is. The name of Jesus. What a wonderful name it is. The name of Jesus.
Let's pray together. Jesus, I love that line in that song that says, my sin was great, because it's so, so true. My sin was and my sin is great. And I have to think, Jesus, that I'm not alone in that. As I'm here in this room today, our sin is great. Your love was greater, Jesus. That when you ask your Father for another way, He said, this is the path, son, that you denied yourself. You took up that cross and you did what you have to do so that we could be forgiven and free. You allowed your body to be broken for us. Let's take the bread together. Jesus, you poured out your blood for us. Let's drink the juice. Yeah, Jesus. Jesus, the sound of these cups crushing, being crushed in our hands, to remember and to symbolize that it is finished. And because you poured out your blood and your body was broken for us, that we are forgiven and we are free. Jesus, death couldn't hold you. Death couldn't hold you, Jesus, and because of that, we're not only forgiven, we are free. Jesus, help us to walk in that as we walk out of this room together today. In Jesus' name, amen.
And death could not hold you, the veil torn before you. You silenced the boast of sin and grave. The heavens are roaring, the praise of your glory. For you are raised to life again. You have no rival. Amen. Well, hey, 20% of you who didn't leave, you guys are the ones I like. Rock on. Hey, if you have questions about this place, there will be some folks in a room called the Garage, out the door, turn left, that would love to answer those questions. If you need prayer, there will be folks under the screens to my right and left. And if you would like to partner with us financially, we don't pass a plate, but there are boxes on the walls in the back. We would love your help with that. And then lastly, there are tables out by the slat wall with volunteer sign-ups. We need a ton of people to make Forest Services a thing that actually happens. And so if you would not mind signing up on some of those tables, that would be really great. See you all next week.
Could have gone